Okay, learning this Lila Nishmas Mindel Mariam Askam and Reuben and Hashem Shem Aliyah. We are on Kuf Mem Beis Amud Aleph. At the end of the last paragraphs, Ela Huda Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. You see that? So let's just quickly review because we're really in the middle of a statement. But basically, we had a Mishnah. The Mishnah talked about Rabbi Yehuda. At the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda spoke about the fact that you are allowed to remove. Remember, if you have truma, one piece of truma, one unit of truma that falls into 100 of non-truma. So what happens is that the mixture is not good until you remove one unit from it. So in other words, it's a big mixture, and one piece of truma mistakenly falls into the 100 pieces of non-truma, which is great. That causes bittul, but the bittul only is concluded as opposed to, let's say, regular bittul. A piece of pork falls into 60 pieces of your cholent, whatever it is, you're totally fine. You don't do anything. But over here, if one piece of truma falls into 100 pieces of non-truma, so the only way that you're allowed to eat it is if you remove one piece, just one unit of whatever's in there, and you just take it out. Okay? Now the Gemara asked if when you do so, you're fixing the item. The item is broken. In other words, it can't be eaten. And by you removing that piece, you're fixing the item. How does Rabbi Yehuda allow that to happen on Shabbos? So we had one suggestion which we rejected. So rather now we're suggestion number 2, which we're also going to reject until we get to suggestion number 3. So 142a4, Ela Huda Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. It's towards the bottom of Kuf Mem Beis Amud Aleph. Ela Huda Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So we try to say that he's saying like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. The time to start by Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer Nosen Einav B'tzad Zeh. Oh, wait 1 second. Did I? I'm sorry. I think we're earlier. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's go back at one page. 142a3. I apologize. We're actually up to attempt number 2, which is on 142a3, which is the Ela Huda Amar Rabbi Shimon. You see that? Yeah, Ela Huda Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rather, he holds like Rabbi Shimon. Kiditnan. What is the opinion of Rabbi Shimon? Sa'ah truma shenafu l'mea. One measurement, one sa'ah of truma, which falls into 100 sa'ah of chulin. And the person did not have time to remove it until another saw fell in. Okay? Harizu asura. Then it is forbidden. Rav Shimon matir. Rav Shimon says that this is okay. So let's just think about what happens over here. You have one saw of truma, right? Which you cannot eat the truma, right? It falls into 100 of non-truma, regular food, right? And then before you have a chance to do anything, another saw fell in. Another saw of truma falls in. So the Tanakama says that now there's 2 saw over here, and 2 saw is not, you need more than 100 to be mevatel, to nullify 2 saw, and you only have 100. You need more than that. You need 200 to be able to do so, and therefore it's forbidden. Rav Shimon matir. Rav Shimon says it's okay. Rav Shimon says it's not a problem. Why? Presumably because Rav Shimon holds that the saw that fell in, the first saw that fell in, never really was mixed in. It was always seen as separate from the non-truma, and therefore, when the second saw falls in, it also is separate from the rest of it, and therefore, again, according to the question that we're at, according to the view of Rav Yehuda in our Mishnah, who said that you're allowed to separate out the piece of truma, like one piece, to make the pile fine. Why does he say that? Because again, it's not broken. It's not like mixed in. You're fixing it. It never really was mixed in. Right? We're looking for an opinion that says it's not really a broken entity. It's not really, again, you can't eat it until you remove that piece, but it's not really invalid. It's not really that you're fixing something. It's never really mixed in, right? So similarly, just like Rav Shimon over here says, piece number 1 falls in, and then piece number 2 falls in. It's all mutter. Why is it mutter? Because the truma piece never really was mixed in with the rest of it. And therefore, when you're removing that piece, you're not really fixing a broken thing. It's just, okay, halachically you have to remove something. But it's not really that it's mixed in and you're fixing it. You just halachically have to remove something in order to be able to eat it. Right? Okay? So the Gemara says, the Gemara now on 142a4, who says that your interpretation of Rav Shimon is correct? Maybe really what they're arguing about is as follows. The Tanakama holds, even though one saw of truma fell in, and then another saw fell in, we see it as if they fell in at once. And when 2 saw falls into 100, it's simply not enough. And if you see the 2, even though they fell consecutively, we see it as if they fell in together at the same time, then ultimately you only have 50 sa of chulin to nullify one, 50 sa of chulin to nullify the other. Rav Shimon savar kamaisa batal b'meya, v'tivtal b'meya ve'echad. And Rav Shimon says, no, the reason that it's nullified is not because it's never seen as mixed in, rather it's fully mixed in. And the point is, Rav Shimon says that the first 100, when the first saw fell into the 100, it nullified it. And then the second saw fell in, and then nullified it, right? So it's not because it wasn't mixed in. No, on the contrary, it was mixed in, and the point is, it was mixed in, and it's done. And then it's mixed in, and it's done. And therefore, the point is that we do not see the truma, if we're looking for an opinion that sees the truma as distinct, We haven't found a source to say that. Ella hu damar Rav Shimon Elazar. Rather, he holds like Rav Shimon Elazar. It's Tanya Rav Shimon Elazar. Omer Rav Shimon Elazar says like this: if you are, if you want to separate, if let's say you have a situation, you have a mixture where there is 1 part truma and 100 parts chulin, no sen eina b'tzad zeh v'ochel mitzad acher. You don't even have to remove one from the other. Rav Shimon ben Elazar holds that let's say you have a case, again, the case that we've been talking about. A piece of truma falls into 100 of chulin. And you know where, more or less where it fell in. Okay? So where you're allowed, or even if you don't, whatever, what you're allowed to do is say, okay, that's where I'm going to remove the truma, and this is the part I'm going to eat. You don't actually have to even remove it. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you Rav Shimon Elazar sees the piece of truma as completely distinct, and that's why I'm allowed to say, "Oh, it's over there, and I'm eating over here." The point is that it's completely separate from it, right? And therefore, we now have an opinion where Rav Yehuda is able to base his opinion on, which holds that as long as the piece of truma that falls in is really always seen as a distinct entity. However, the Gemara challenges this on a technical question.
It's also easier on Shabbos because there's no removal.
Correct, but it's all based on the same premise. There's no removal because it's never really mixed in. But yes, technically it's easier. When we separate kavase, does Rav Shimon Elazar really agree with Rav Yehuda? One for kufman beis mabeis v'mifleg plalig al. Don't we find Rav Shimon Elazar and Rav Yehuda arguing? How can you say that Rav Yehuda is holding Rav Shimon Elazar? We see them arguing at the time it's taught in the Brisa. Rav Yehuda Omer Malin es madum be'echad ameya. Rav Yehuda, the view of Rav Yehuda, which we saw in our Mishnah, where he said you're allowed to remove 1 part of truma from a mixture with 100 parts of chulin, and then in a Brisa we have Rav Shimon Elazar arguing that. Rav Shimon Elazar Omer nosen ein b'tzad zev ochel mitzad acher. You look, and that's enough. You don't even have to remove it. So how can you tell me Rabbi Yehuda is holding like Rav Shimon Elazar? You see that in a Brisa they actually are arguing with one another. They don't hold the same thing. So where it says no, Rabbi Yehuda adifam Rav Shimon Elazar. Rabbi Yehuda is more lenient than that of Rav Shimon Elazar. In other words, they really hold that the same concept that the truma is not really mixed in with the chulin. Rabbi Yehuda holds that you are allowed to even remove it, right? Which to Max's point, right? Which is a little bit more lenient. You're actually even allowed to take it out. Rabbi Shimon Elazar says you just leave it there, but they both hold to the same concept that it's not really considered mixed in. And now we have understood Rabbi Yehuda and found and seen that him and Rabbi Shimon Elazar basically hold the same concept that when truma falls into chulin, and even though there's going to be a form of bittul here, it never really mixed in. Okay, now we're going to move back to a discussion of muktzah. Okay, so we are at the Mishnah on Kuf Beis Beis. Here we go. Evan Shalpia Chavis. Let's say you have a stone that is placed in the opening of a cask. Okay, you have a room, you have your wine room, you have your wine cellar, and there's a bunch of casks, a bunch of barrels, and you have a stone sitting on the cask that you want. The Cabernet is covered by a stone, and that's what you want to serve because you have the perfect meat that goes together with that Cabernet. So Mata al Tzida B'Nofeles. What you're allowed to do is tilt the cask on the side, and the stone falls down. Cool, no problem. However, haisa beina chavios. Let's say the cask was among other casks. Let's say you're a real wine collector, and you have a bunch of casks sitting in this room. Okay, so magbio mata al tzida v'nofeles. What you're allowed to do is, if you turn it over, the problem is it's going to fall over. The casks are not these like thick, tremendous cask. You're going to turn the stone over. Imagine it's a big rock. It's going to hit the cask next to it, and it's going to break it. Can't do that. You don't want to do that. So what you're allowed to do is you're allowed to pick up the cask, move it away from the other casks, and then turn it over. You'd be allowed to do that, right? Okay? Similarly, if you have money that's on a pillow, you're allowed to shake the pillow so that it falls off. Just like the case of the cask, we're allowed to turn it over in order to get the stone off. Here you have money on top of the pillow, you shake the pillow and get the money off. Okay. Haisa alav lishleshes, and now a new law which is related to cleaning. Let's say you have dirt on a pillow and you want to clean it off. You're allowed to wipe it off with a rag, but you're not allowed to pour water on it. So we saw this earlier. If you have a stain, important, on Shabbos, you cannot pour any water whatsoever on it. That is a form of laundering. That's the first step of laundering, is you're pouring water on it. So if you have a stain, even though I'm not going to clean it off, I'm just pouring some water on it, usher, you cannot do so. You're not allowed to pour water on it. You're allowed to take a little rag and try to get it off. Again, as I think we pointed out before, if your cleaning is going to be so thorough, it's going to remove the stain entirely, that's actually usher, because that would be really cleaning. It's only if you know that it's going to leave behind a little bit of a stain. Or if the pillow is made of leather, okay, you're allowed to pour water on it. Why? Because regular leather does not absorb. The post can talk about what if it's thin leather, but the point is typical leather does not absorb water. The water is just on top, so therefore I'm allowed to pour water on it. I still can't scrub it, but but I would be allowed to pour the water on it. So similar if I have like a leather jacket or something like that, it has a stain, I'm allowed to pour water on it because it's not really absorbing, and therefore it's not seen as the typical way of cleaning leather, and therefore I'm allowed to pour water on it to remove the dirt. Okay, a big discussion about what type of materials are possibly similar to leather and what are similar to other materials. We typically are strict, and we don't want to pour water onto even like synthetic materials or things like that because the concern that it might be more considered like clothing, and therefore if you have a stain, you don't pour water on it, you change your clothing. Okay, this halacha of turning the cask over is only where a person forgot the stone upon on the cask. If a person deliberately leaves the stone there, then the cask becomes a base, right? So there's this concept, right, which we've been touching on until now throughout, and that is that there's a concept called a basas l'davar aser. To make something a basas l'davar aser is only if you deliberately leave it there. Okay, so if I when I leave my Shabbos candles on the tray, I deliberately wanted them there, right? I want my candles on the tray. I put them there. So if I put a stone on top of a cask in order to, hold the cask down or something, then I'm not allowed to move the cask because the cask itself has become muksa. If I forgot it there, if it was there by mistake, person put it there, they're moving things around, they put the stone there, and then, again, obviously, intention doesn't mean that they were absent-minded when they did it, but the point is, I don't really want it to stay there. Like, I'm cleaning my wine cellar, and there's a stone there, so for a moment I move it there, and I say, I'm going to move it later, or whatever it is, I didn't plan for it to be there. That's called a case of shocheach, and there I come on Shabbos, like, oh my gosh, I left a stone there, then I'm allowed to turn it over. But if I said, I want to have a stone there to hold the wine down, or to prevent the animals from getting, right? Sometimes you have your garbage bins outside, you don't want the raccoons or whatever to get inside, you put a stone on top of it, that's deliberate, and therefore the entire garbage, or the entire cask in this case, would be considered a basis.
So what's the difference between that and putting a watch on the thing that holds your candlesticks, for example?
Your watch makes
okay.
No, because then we said what happens to the watch is that the tray now becomes a basis for a davar aser, the candlesticks, and a davar mutter, the watch. Right? Over here, I'm not sure if this is what you're asking, but there is a big shayla that's asked. They say, wait a second, the barrel should really be a basis for a stone, which is davar aser. What about the wine? Isn't the wine a davar mutter? Right? And therefore it should be no different than the tray, which has your candlesticks and your watch. Right? So the post can deal.
The watch isn't muksa.
Correct. The watch is muksa, right? That's what makes it for both.
The watch isn't muksa.
The watch is not muksa. Exactly. But I'm pointing out that there is a shaila over here, which is addressed. We're not going to get into it, but basically saying that over here, really, there should be a basis for both aser, i.e. the rock, and the wine being mutter, but let's ignore that for a second, or for the rest of the day. But it is something which is discussed by the poskim. Okay. Fine, not unfortunate, not for Amud Yomi. Okay, so if you have a wine cask among other casks, okay, so now let's think about this case. You have the cask, and you have two options. Right? You have a bunch of casks. You have 5 casks, and there's a cask in the middle. There's a Cabernet, and that's the one you really want. And has a stone on top of it. So obviously I could take the stone off, or I could pick up the cask and move it and knock it over, and then have my cask, right? So who is the one who holds where there's a choice between handling a prohibited object, i.e. the rock, or a permitted object, i.e. the cask? That you should go with the permitted object and not use the prohibited one. In other words, ultimately over here you have this choice between the both of them. We want to let you get your Cabernet. We want to let you get the wine, the cask. You could either just remove the stone and then take the casket, or you could remove them, or you could remove the casket, which is hetera. So who's the one who holds that? Amar Rabba Bar Chana. Amar Rav Yochanan, Rav Shimon Gamliel. It is Rav Shimon Gamliel. Let's see which Rav Shimon Gamliel. This time it's taught in the Mishnah. Habor kitnios b'yamtiv. Let's say a person has legumes, okay, certain vegetables on Yom Tiv, and it's a mixture of good and bad. Of let's say you have we buy our food in the store. We're very lucky we have it's all more or less cleaned. It has maybe a speck of dirt, whatever it is. But imagine back in the day you go to the market or whatever it is, it's a mess, right? You have your vegetable, you have your peas, which are your potatoes, everything's like gross, right? It's all mixed with mud or whatever it is, and you want to go ahead and take the legumes that you're going to be cooking or whatever it is on Yom Tiv, and so you want to be separating. You need to be separating the good, the dirt, which is bad, and from the good. Okay, so Beishamei Omrim bar ochel va'ochel. What you have to do is you take the food from the bad, right? Good from the bad. That is classic. How you get around borer, right? Beisil Omrim. Beisil says no. Borer kedarko. You're allowed to go and do in the usual manner. What is the usual manner? In this scenario, you're allowed to even take the bad from the good. Okay, that's the normal way that you do it. That you're taking the bad, you're taking the dirt away or the grass that's mixed into it. You're allowed to do so. On your lap or with a large plate. In other words, even using a utensil. Vitanya, and it was said about this from Shem Gamliel, regarding what was this said? When did Beis Hillel say you're allowed to remove the food from the bad from the good? Where there's more good than bad. In other words, let's say you have a mixture. Normally we always think, I should take the good from the bad. That's the better thing to do. But the truth is there are some times where it actually makes more sense to take the bad from the good. You're going to actually exert more energy if you take the good from the bad because there's so much good and there's so little bad, right? In a scenario where there's 75% food and 25% waste, you're actually exerting more energy by taking all the good out of the bad. It'd be better, says Rav Shimon Gamliel, Rabbi Yisrael only says you could do this, where you're taking the bad from the good, is if there's 25% bad, 25% waste, because then you're exerting less energy, right? So, aval psolas meruba ala ochel, diver kol bora ochel. But if the impurities are more than the food, then everyone agrees, then you should take the food. Okay, so basically what Rav Shimon Gamliel is telling us is that when there's a case where there's either or, it's better to take the non-muksa, it's better to take when a case where there is like 50-50 even, where there is good and bad, he says take the good, right? Even though Beis Hillel said simply you could take the bad from the good, Rav Shimon Gamliel qualifies and says that's only when there's much more good than bad. But let's say it's 50-50 or something like that, then you do take the non-muksa. You take, again, the psolos over here would be considered like quasi-muksa. It's like something which doesn't have any function, and the food is what you want. He would say, take the good. So this is Rav Shimon Gamliel. However, the Gemara points out, but over here, let's think about this case. It's analogous to a case where there is more food than waste. In other words, over here, there's more food than waste. And what does your Beis Hillel say? When there's more food than waste, what are you allowed to take? You're allowed to take the bad, the waste, right? Think about it. Over here, there's one rock, right? If all I have to do is take the rock off, and I'd be done, right? There's much more. I could just leave it there, which is much less work, right? And so there's more, so to speak, there's more food, meaning there's more exertion, right? What's the principle? The principle is do less exertion. So what's more exertion? Do I take the rock off, or do I take the entire bucket, the entire casket, and move it away? Obviously, taking the rock off is much less work. And therefore, the Gemara is saying, if this is indeed Rav Shimon Gamliel, then we should actually just be allowed to take the rock off because that's much less exertion. Right? You follow that? So the Gemara says, no, that's not true. So over here, it's true. In the beginning of using the caskets, it's going to be more work it'll be easier if I just take the rock off the top and then start taking the wine from. Then I could start using the wine. But the truth is, once I get to the bottom of the casket, what am I have to do? When you get to the bottom of something, you have to turn it over, right? You get to the bottom of you have to turn over the casket. So at some point in the process, I'm going to have to start moving it over, right? And since that's the case, I may as well right now, it's actually less work to right now move it over and get the rock off so that eventually I'll be able to do so. In other words, yes, I can move the rock right now, but it's not really going to help me. Over here, since I'm ultimately going to have to turn the casket over to the side, therefore it actually is less work to go ahead and move the whole thing now, get the rock off, and then I can just use it normally, as opposed to taking the rock off now and then again exerting myself to do that second time. Okay? And therefore we say it is Rav Shimon Gamliel, and over here it is a case where actually the least amount of work is to remove the casket and then eventually get the rock off. Okay, says the Gemara further. Mishnah said, Haisa bein hachavios magbia, right? If it was among the casks, one's allowed to lift the cask and move it to a safe area and knock it off. Tanya, Rav Yossi Omer Haisa chavios munachas ba'otzer. Let's say you have a cask resting in a storeroom with other casks. Osha klis chuchis munachin tachteh, or there are glass vessels resting nearby. Let's say you don't have 15 barrels of wine. You're a normal person. You have 1 barrel of wine, but you have glass things in the same storage room filled with other things, right? So if I move the casket over, what's going to happen? It's going to potentially break the glass. Same thing. I'm allowed to lift it up, carry it to another place, tilt it to the side. Then I can take whatever I want from the wine, and of course I'm allowed to move the cask back after I am done. Okay, says the Gemara further. Mo on 142b3. Mos shalakar, money that's on a pillow. Right, I'm allowed to shake the pillow off. I'm allowed to shake the pillow so that it falls off. Amar Chia bar Ashi Amarav Lo Shanat L'B'Shocheach. This whole halacha is only when a person forgot the money there. But if a person deliberately put the money on their pillow, they said, I want to have money on this pillow because I want to leave it there. It's a safe place. Then nasis basis avar asur. Then my pillow becomes a basis, and I can't shake the pillow because the pillow is also muksa, and therefore I'm not allowed to handle the pillow either. This situation where I must shake it off is specifically where I want to use the pillow. right? So I want to use the pillow, not necessarily want to sleep there. I want to use the pillow and bring it to my couch, right? So there I shake off the money, and then I could go ahead and take the pillow. However, let's say I need the place where the pillow is, right? I want to go to sleep there or something like that. Then mitatlan vote and love. You're allowed to move the pillow with the money on it. Why? Because if I don't, it's not actually, if I just shake it off, it's not going to help because I'm going to have money right there and I need that place. So in a situation where shaking it's not going to actually be helpful, then I'm allowed to pick up the pillow and move it and take it off. In a situation where shaking it off is actually in other words, I'm supposed to do the least amount of muksa handling. So if I need the pillow and I have money on it, then I shouldn't pick up the whole pillow and knock it off because I'm doing more than I need to with the muksa. If all I need is the pillow, then I just shake it off and then pick it up. But if I forgot it on the pillow and I actually want to go to in a situation where I forgot on the pillow and I actually want to go to sleep there, shaking it off is silly. It's not actually helping me, and therefore I'm allowed to go ahead and pick it up. Okay, v'chein tani chia bara midifti lo shana lo tzorch gufo. It's only when I only need to do this in the case where I need it for the sake of its use. Aval lo tzorch mekomo. If I want to go to sleep there, mitatlan v'od alav, I'm allowed to pick up the whole pillow and then take it off. Again, this is only according to most poskim if I forgot the money there. If I deliberately paste it there, then my pillow is also muksa. Okay. Moshe alakar menayer. Okay, again, the Mishnah said that I'm allowed to shake it. Amar Ravoshia shachach arniki b'chatzer. If a person forgets a purse or a wallet in a courtyard where it is not safe, right? You leave it outside and you're afraid you leave a wallet on the street or in your courtyard, in your front yard, someone's going to come and steal it. So what do? Maniach le'ah kikar otinek matatzla. You're allowed to place a loaf of bread. Okay, again, the purses were not like a little tiny wallet. They have, let's say, a big purse. So you let them put a loaf of bread or even a little child on it, and then you move it because now the purse is now like a seat for the loaf of bread or for the child. Okay, so it's like a shtick. It's a kula. Okay, I'm Rabbi Yitzchak shachach levena b'chatzer. This person forgot a brick. Okay, bricks were a little bit more expensive back then. Similar thing. You let her put a piece of bread or a child on it, and then you can carry it. I'm Rabbi Yehuda bar Shila. I'm Rabbi Asi. Pam acha shachu desaikum le'amos b'sratia. It will happen once they forgot a pouch filled with money in a public thoroughfare. Uvav v'sholos Rabbi Yochanan. They asked Rabbi Yochanan what to do. V'amar lehen hanicho le'a kikar tzinik metaltzeluha. Place a loaf of bread or a young child on it and move it. Now they couldn't move it from a public domain to a private domain. That would be an Isser Shabbos, but they would be allowed to move it within 4 amos within the public domain in like a hidden place, and that would be okay. However, Amar Marzutra, first of all, it comes along Marzutra and says, the halacha follows all these teachings, only a person forgot it. But if a person left it there intentionally, you can't do so. Rav Ashi Amar afilu shachach nami lo. Rav Ashi says, no way. He says, even if you forgot these things, even forgot the wallet, you dropped your wallet, it's Erev Shabbos, you're running into your house, you dropped your wallet, then you lit candles, oh my gosh, I left my wallet over there, can I place the child or the bread on it? He says, absolutely not. This whole dispensation for moving muksa by a loaf of bread or young child, Ella Mace Bilvad is only for a corpse. There's a special thing for Kvod HaMace, right? We spoke about this way before, that if there is a corpse in a room and it's disrespectful and it's etc., you're allowed to place a piece of bread to move it and put it into a protected area so that the corpse doesn't decompose on Shabbos. So we waive some of the laws of muksa in that case. But because of loss of money, nothing doing. According to Rav Ashi, that's how we paskin, you can't do this shtick. It's only we disagree with all these opinions. Rav Ashi, who is the latter of the views, says this dispensation only works for a corpse. Let's say the Gemara further. The Gemara gives some stories. Abaya manach kappa akife. Abaya placed a spoon on sheaves of grain that he wanted to move. Rava manach sakina abar yonah metatla. Rava placed a knife on a raw dove, on a dove meat, and then moved it. Again, same. They basically not agreeing with Rashi. They did the shtick. Amrav Yosef kama charifa shmaitza darke. How sharp the teaching of the youngsters appear to be. He's being sarcastic. He says they think they're so smart. They're not so smart. Amar damar rabbanan. When did the rabbis say this? B'shocheach. Only when a person forgot the muksa lechatchila miyamar. These cases were a place where the people left the dove deliberately. They left the sheaves deliberately, and now they changed their mind. They want to move it inside. This was never even allowed in these cases, right? So these people are really Rav and Abaya. These are big guns over here. They're really dropping the ball. They should not have done this. So Rabbi defends himself. He says, if I were not for the fact that I'm a distinguished person, meaning people would copy me, I would not even bother doing this. Kappa kipe lamali. I don't even need to place the spoon on the sheaves. Hachazlam is gala. I'm allowed to recline. These sheaves can be used as a chair. And therefore he says, I don't even need to do this shtick. The problem is that people copy me and misinterpret me, and that's why I put the spoon on it for an added stringency. Okay, similarly, Amarava, if not for the fact that I'm a distinguished person, Sakina na abar yona lamali. I don't even need to place a knife knife on the raw dove meat. It's fit for me if people eat raw dove meat, and therefore he said I don't even have to do that, right? So the only reason I did this is, again, people are going to copy me and do the wrong thing. As says the Gemara in time of the chazla umta, Rava says it's only because it's fit to eat while it's raw. If it wasn't fit to eat if it's raw, he would not allow so. Now, even though dove meat could be eaten by animals, it would sound like Rava is saying only when it's fit for human consumption, not when it's fit for animals. This would imply that Rava holds like Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda is the one who holds that muksa, a very stringent view of muksa. Rava told his attendant on Yom Tov, roast a goose for me and throw its intestines to the cat, which is a more of a leniency when it comes to muksa. Okay, so Rav Yehuda would hold that would be asur. The Gemara turn the page. The Gemara says hasam by the intestine. Really, he does hold like Rav Yehuda a very stringent view of muksa. Hasam kevin masrach in the case of intestines, he knows that it's going to spoil if it's left over. Therefore, even before they cooked it, before Yom Tov, he was planning on using the intestines, and therefore, even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that's fine. Okay, but hachana, fine. But really, he does hold to the stringent views of Rabbi Yehuda. Hachanam nistabed Rabbi Yehuda sfirle. It's indeed Rava does hold Rabbi Yehuda. Darsh Rava ishal etkanis levesa eitzim litzaman ud on Yom Tov, where most opinions would hold you're allowed to just take wood and use it for a poker to stir coals. Rava says a woman should not go into the woodshed where the wood is put away and take pieces of wood as a poker. Or wood and poker that broke on Yom Tov cannot be used to make it to use it as fire. Person's allowed to fuel a fire with undamaged utensils, but you're not allowed to use fragmented utensils. In other words, something broke on Yom Tov. Rabbi Yehuda holds a very stringent view that if it was originally designated one thing, you can't use it for something else. That's a stringency of Rabbi Yehuda. Shmamina, we see Rava does indeed follow the view of Rabbi Yehuda. We'll pick up in the next Mishnah tomorrow. Have a great day.